Hey everyone, Amna Nawaz here in New York. It is debate night once again. Later tonight in Las Vegas, the Republican presidential candidates will face off once again in two debates, first the undercard and then the main stage debate. One of those candidates, Rand Paul, just made it into the main stage debate recently, and we've got insight into all the candidates. We'll have you covered, of course, before, during, and after the debates. But for Rand Paul, we're going to take you live now to Brad Mielke, who joins us live from a Rand Paul phone bank, I believe it is. They're ramping up their ground operations there. Brad, tell us what you've got on the ground there.
Well, good evening, Amna. Yes, I'm here in Manchester, New Hampshire, of course, the biggest city in one of the biggest states when it comes to the presidential campaign. And Rand Paul, as much as we've been talking about Donald Trump and Ted Cruz, this is a huge night for Rand Paul. He was actually slated not to be on the debate stage just a few days ago, but in a surprise move, CNN said they're going to allow him onto the debate stage because of a recent strong poll that he had. And so his people are really feeling the momentum, and his campaign is capitalizing on that, right? They brought in about 24 volunteers that are working the phones just in this office. I'm told it's one of 3 similar phone banks they're doing across the state, and people here seem pretty jazzed as the debate is about to get underway.
So Brad, what are you hearing from those folks on the ground who are working to build support for him? What's the message to folks in New Hampshire from the Paul campaign?
Well, I think one of the biggest messages of the night is going to be just that he is a viable presidential candidate, right? We've seen him slipping in the polls, but people here don't seem deterred by that. But their job tonight is to convince the rest of New Hampshire that that is in fact the case. Because people here in New Hampshire, as I found, they talk about it all the time as viability. I don't want to waste my vote, this precious vote that we have in New Hampshire, on a candidate that might not actually win the primary or win the general election down the road. So there's a lot of undecideds out there in New Hampshire right now that are deciding, is Rand Paul or somebody like Rand Paul the guy I want to spend that vote on?
Now, Brad, every time we talk about the Republican field, we kind of lead off talking about Trump, the front runner who's only increased his national lead in the last few months. And Paul gave us a little bit of a preview as to what we might expect to see from him in tonight's debate. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we've heard a lot about Donald Trump in the past few days, and we've talked a lot about the attacks that may or may not go on around him. He's always in the center of things. He's always mixing it up with people. In the last debate, you saw Rand Paul really take a run at him. You'll also see it, I think, with candidates like Ted Cruz is going to be the name on everyone's lips tonight, and wondering if other candidates like Rand Paul will take a run at him as well. So we're still waiting to see how that strategy bears out for Rand Paul and many others. Whether we're talking about Jeb Bush, Chris Christie is also making a big run in the state right now. A lot of people talking about him surging. But we'll see how it all goes down in Las Vegas tonight and whether that has an impact here in New Hampshire.
So Brad, one of the topics that's become a main issue, not just among the presidential candidates, but also among the American voters in the last month, has been national security because of the attacks in Paris and in California. So where does Rand Paul fit into that conversation? What's been the message from his campaign on that issue?
Well, Rand Paul has long been a proponent of libertarianism, which a lot of people equate with isolationism. That's the word we hear all the time directed towards Rand Paul. He wants to keep America out of a lot of international conflicts. He sees that, in his view, makes America less secure. It's actually a big waste of money, and he's billing himself as the only true fiscal conservative, and that includes military spending. He says bringing down military spending, bringing down the military presence across the world from the U.S. would actually be a benefit for the U.S. in the long run. And in fact, maybe what I'll do right now is bring in one of the chief strategists for Rand Paul here in the state of New Hampshire, Mike Biondo. And Mike, you're one of the heavy hitters here when it comes to Rand Paul's campaign staff. What's been the message of Rand Paul as he goes and meets New Hampshire voters?
Well, it's been a consistent message. He talks about liberty, he talks about fiscal responsibility, he talks about protecting our country, and he's been all over the state. We literally had a town hall in every county. He's here, every couple of weeks, working hard, talking with voters, getting the tough questions that are a lot tougher than the ones that he gets from the media here in New Hampshire.
Is that right? So the media hasn't been giving him what you would call tough questions. What are the questions the voters do want to hear the answers to?
They want to talk about national security. They want to talk talk about the budget. They want to talk about the debt and deficit, which is a big thing on people's minds. So he's been getting those questions across the state, and he's been talking with voters one-on-one and taking his case to the people.
Well, and tonight, not just one-on-one, but dozens on dozens, because
Yes.
you've got several people here in the room. So what's going on behind us?
Well, you know, this is a typical night in New Hampshire. You know, we had our office open since June. We've been making thousands and thousands of phone calls a day. So, you know, when polls have small little 400 to 600 person samples, we're literally calling thousands of persons a day, and we know that there's about 80% of the people that are undecided. So what we do here is we call these people and we talk to them about their issues, and we find out where they are in the issues, and then we follow up with them, and we keep calling them until election day.
And so right now we're in your main headquarters for the state of New Hampshire. This is your Manchester offices. Tell me, what happens in a place like this? Like, what goes on day to day that maybe, you know, Joe voter in other states doesn't quite know about?
Well, what you don't know really is the volunteers really drive any campaign. You know, a lot of times we focus on events, but this is the real hard work. You know, the volunteers come in every day, they make calls, they stuff mail like they're doing in the other room, and they send voters, you know, Rand's positions on different issues. You know, it's a lot of strategy that goes into, you know, trying to target, you know, where you're going to make your phone calls, what your scripts are going to be, you know, who you're going to be talking to. So that happens every day here, and it's been happening since we opened up our office.
Well, and so I'll give you one other question then. What is a sample script then? As one of these guys calls a random number, what are they saying to the person that picks up the phone?
Well, it has a ballot test on it, and then it goes through, you know, where they stand on a set of issues, and then we find out where they stand on a set of issues, and then we'll mail them on those issues, and we'll tell them why Rand Paul's the best on those issues, and then most of them end up being undecided voters who we're talking to. There's not a lot of people that have decided where they are right now. So then what we'll do after that is we'll, you know, send them a piece of mail, and then we'll follow up with it, and then we'll call them again, and we'll keep calling them, and blow up their phones until election day.
Well, so there you go. As you can see, it's a whole operation that goes in here, complete with a script, complete with mail that you're going to get assaulted with at your doorstep when you do end up picking the phone and talking to these people. And New Hampshire voters get it. And you know, I talked to so many people that are they're the subjects of not only mailings and phone calls, but also polls. People here are polled maybe more than anyone else in the country. They're used to picking up the phone when it gets to this time of the year.
You make it sound so appealing, Brad. Just getting assaulted by phone calls and mailers just coming at you right up until the actual caucus happens. Now, I understand you had a couple of other people there you were going to talk to as well who can give us a little more insight as to how the Paul campaign runs there and what New Hampshire voters are looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's take a look around the room here, because as you see right now behind me, everyone's got these lists that they're looking at. I see some... Here, I'll turn the camera around for you for a second.
Okay.
If that wasn't an issue,
got a
would you
list
say
of phone
favorable,
numbers, a list
neutral,
of
unfavorable,
names,
or
and
unsure?
what these guys are going to try to do is find out exactly who they're talking to. Ask what matters to you, what are the issues that you care about, what would make you vote for Rand Paul. And in fact, we've got one of our volunteers right here, Victoria Sullivan. I'll wait for her to get off of her next phone call. But Victoria is a state representative in the state. She has her own constituency. She goes to the state house and votes on state laws. But at night, she comes and works for the Rand Paul campaign for free. And right now she's talking to a voter. Maybe we can even listen and see what she's saying.
14. Yeah, 275. You're not going to say, well, you don't have to tell me if you don't want to. Can I ask you if you have a favorable opinion of Senator Paul? Okay, and may I ask you if you consider yourself a conservative, a libertarian, a moderate, or a liberal?
It is. Do you have any idea who we're doing supporting? I'll be supporting Rand Paul.
All right, well, thank you. You have a good night, okay?
Yeah, well, you have a great night. Okay.
Victoria, how are you?
Yes, I'm good. How are you?
So, would you mind telling us a little bit about what you're doing tonight?
We're just phone banking. We're calling people and asking them if they've yet decided on a candidate. Most people haven't decided. We're getting about 70% of people saying they're still undecided who they're going to vote for. So from there, we just have a few quick questions. We don't keep them on the phone too long. If they have a favorable or unfavorable opinion of Senator Paul, what they would consider themselves, what's their party affiliation, and then the most important issue to them in this campaign.
The most important issue is what?
To them in this campaign.
Oh, what the most important issue is to that voter in the campaign. And so if they say they are a Rand Paul fan, what do you say to them? And if they say, I'm not a Rand Paul fan, do you try to convince them?
If they say they are, I say thank you. makes it so much easier. If they say they're undecided, I try to steer them toward the website where they might get some answers to the questions that they're on the fence with. And if they say they're not, I might, depending on the feeling I'm getting from them, ask them why and try to sort of give them information about Senator Paul that they may not have that might help bring them over to our side a little bit more.
And so you're a state representative, right? I mean, you got a busy day. You guys there were special legislative sessions happening this week. What makes you come here at night before busy debate nights and actually spend your time talking to strangers?
And my kids, don't forget. I'm still a mom. I still have those duties too. But that's why I do this. It's really important. I think that Senator Paul is the best person for my children's future. And so it's important for me to take the time to make sure that he is our president, because he's the only one that can reel in the spending and make the right choices for my kids. He's also the only one who's going to make the right decisions and not jump into war with people that we don't belong in war with. I have 2 boys. I want our president to make tough decisions when it comes to war, not jump in because we need to be everywhere, releasing the whole world.
Gotcha. Hey, what are you drinking there, by the way? What's fueling you?
Someone gave me an energy drink. I guess I looked a little tired when I came in tonight.
Well, thank you. Well, and so I'll take you around the room here just a little bit more. I'm going to see if we can track down another supporter. But as you can see, a lot of energy in the room right now. I'm not even sure you can quite hear me all the time because it is pretty loud in the room. And you see right here another volunteer here. He's got his hand over the phone as he tries to just make it sound like a nice intimate experience with whatever voter he's on the line with right now. While he finishes up his call, I'll just tell you that as you can see behind me, the Rand Paul team brought in the Christmas tree to spruce up the office a little bit, and supporters here tell me that it came from one of the local Christmas tree places. They decorated it. Rand Paul himself, I think, was involved in picking it out and putting it up, and he's been making the rounds to these multiple campaign offices that they have to bring some good tidings this time of year.
Well, I bet a visit from Rand Paul helps to lift their spirits too. But Brad, give me a sense of, in terms of a state like New Hampshire, you've spent a lot of time there. You've got a room packed of dozens of people who are just working the phones, trying to turn every vote they can their way. I imagine every other campaign has the same kind of operation. So this kind of ground game, it's really important in a state like New Hampshire, isn't it, where absolutely every single vote counts.
Yeah, it's everything when you talk about organization in the state, because these candidates, they've got a lot of places to be, especially those that consider themselves to be running a 50-state campaign. You can't be everywhere at once, and so it really takes a lot of trust when you hire these staffs and you get these volunteers to knock on the doors while you are not here. It's a big, big deal. I mean, we talk about staffing numbers all the time. It's not insignificant that while you have staffs like Chris Christie, they have 4 people working here full-time in the state. Then you take a look at Jeb Bush, who has the biggest staff in the state with 20 Republicans working on his staff in the state. But then you take a look at the Democrats, Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, both with over 50 paid staff in the state, and you can see that it really becomes an arms race when you talk about staffing these offices all around New Hampshire.
Yeah, and you see how the ground game can really come to influence in a state like this where you're fighting for every single vote. Now, do you have that supporter we can talk to? Is he still working the phone pretty hard?
I do. I think he actually just dropped the phone, so let me turn the camera around here. What's your name?
Brandon Ross.
So, Brandon, what brought you out here tonight?
Well, there were phone calls to be made, and there are always phone calls to be made.
And so how often are you here, by the way? How often are you making phone calls on behalf of this campaign?
I don't know. I try to come out whenever I can. The campaign staff would have a better record of that. I've been trying to do about 100 or so when I come in.
100 every time you come in?
Well, I try to, but once I did 200, but a couple times I did, I had to be somewhere else and just can't make it. But yeah, it's about getting in here, coming in periodically. That's how you get stuff done.
And what's it, for somebody who's never volunteered at a phone bank for a political candidate before, do you have any great stories or any interesting exchanges you've had with voters? I imagine it's, a lot of unscripted moments that happen, right?
Oh yeah, it's good. Well, on our side we have a rough script we follow, but it quickly goes right off that script. Sometimes you get some really good people who are big Rand supporters, and those are the best calls. If he's going to be it, like I had one a short while ago. I think I actually have met the person. There was some event in Nashville. Oh, we should come down to Nashville and meet all the people that are going to be there. So you get some really interesting stories about people who are supporting their candidate, and of course I like the Paul supporters.
And what happens when you have somebody that's not a Rand Paul fan? I mean, what's that like? Is that, this is a state where so many people talk about their political views, a lot of unfiltered views. How do you talk to the person that says absolutely not, or maybe even I'm undecided, I don't know yet?
Well, in New Hampshire we have a huge number of independent voters, so it's normal, and they're your neighbors for the most part. So it's not like they're strangers or anything like that. I mean, it's just this is normal human interaction. You just want to know what their opinions are and where they are. We don't really. I mean, this isn't the sell phase, I guess, if you want to say. I mean, if I can certainly convince somebody that Rand Paul is the superior choice, and he is, then I'll absolutely do that. But right now, I mean, right in this survey we're doing right now, we're just trying to gauge public opinion and see where people are right now.
All right, last question, Brandon. What are you looking for in the debate tonight? Are you going to be watching, and what are you hoping happens?
I absolutely am going to be watching, and I'd love to see Rand come out. And the last debate was really great. He was a little bit more forceful than the previous debates, and he really put his positions out there and distinguished himself from the rest of the candidates. I think some of the other candidates, I think their stories are getting a little bit old, a little cliche, and I'd love to hear him come out and make his case to America.
I was going to say, you're looking for him to play hardball with, I'm thinking about Donald Trump, I'm thinking about Ted Cruz. What do you think of them, and what do you think he'll say to them?
I'm not going to share my opinion on those candidates, but I think when he gets out there and when he speaks his mind, he really does. I think he stands above them on the issues. When it comes to who has the intelligent and best position, I don't think he really. The other candidates really don't agree with that, especially on foreign policy.
Right. Well, thank you for your time, and I guess you're breathing in the Douglas fir fumes all night. How's that going for you?
Oh, it's great. It was very nice of the candidate to deliver that for us. It does smell great.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Brandon.
Sure, thank you.
All right, that's a deal.
All right, well, there you have it, Amna. So that's another supporter in here, and I can even take you just around the room. You see people on the phones, but then there's a whole other room here where a few very dedicated volunteers are doing their job of just stamping envelopes and sending out direct mail to people. That's another big part of the ground game here in New Hampshire.
It's like takes an army on the ground there just to get things moving, fighting for each and every vote. So it sounds like everyone there is going to be watching the debate. We certainly will be watching it with a lot of interest. And Brad, I understand you're going to be watching it too from another location. Where will you be?
Yeah, that's right. I'll be, there's watch parties happening all over the city, all over the state. Right across town, actually, is the headquarters for Donald Trump's New Hampshire team. So I'll be driving over there, zipping across the city, and watching from there. But every single campaign has at least some staff and supporters watching their candidate tonight in Manchester. So you could take your pick if you're here. We're going to go see how the Donald Trump supporters are feeling.
Well, we will be sure to check back with you. ABC's Brad Mielke live from New Hampshire at Rand Paul phone bank headquarters there, fighting for every last vote in this all-important state. Stay with us here at ABC News Digital. We're going to have you covered before, during, and after tonight's GOP debate. Thanks for watching.